Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? All good in the hood, I think, right? Everyone's ready? Is everyone ready? How are you guys doing? And my camera's wrong. Great. This is a great start. How y'all doing? Let me just change this filter over here real quick. There we go. Technical issue. No worries. How y'all doing? It's been a while. It's been a minute. Right? There we go. I'm back. Look at that. I survived. Technical issues. The beginning of our stream. Cool. I see some people already tuning in for the ZBrush Live Environment Art Workshop, which is my segment here on ZBrush Live, exclusive to the Maxon ZBrush and the Maxon Training Team channels. Can you guys tell me if the music's too loud? Maybe it's probably a little bit too loud. Let me just push it down a little bit, just a little bit. There we go. You can barely see my face with this tablet over here. Great, so we're back. Long time no see, everyone. So I decided to find some time to hang out with you guys and drink some of that ZBrush tea, you know. And you know me, ZBrush tea means that we got some stuff to show. Like, and I don't mean this is not a what's new, this is not something like that, but sometimes, you know, like I can dive a little deeper with the features and you guys go like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And that's always awesome to see, because I see a lot of people in the chat sometimes reacting and going like, we didn't know we could use that and we could do that in ZBrush, and this is what we want to see as well. Let me just push the camera over here just a tad so you guys can see my awesome Gundam over there. No, I'm kidding. It's just so this doesn't cover up my face. Great. So let's get on to it. Let me switch this over here. By the way, before we move on, let me just mention that I have, unless you haven't noticed, unless you're not looking at the screen, look at the screen. I don't have the look up here like Paul does, but I still can capture your attention with my loud voice, like everyone in the office keeps complaining about. Like, oh, this guy just, whenever he's in the room, everyone knows he's in the room. Because that's me, guys. That's just who I am. I can't contain myself when I'm talking about ZBrush. So, one thing that you guys noticed over here is that we have a little QR code on the other side. Sorry, dyslexia. Over here, on this side, you can see a little QR code. So, in case you haven't tried ZBrush, just in case, like, I don't know, like probably you're tuning in, maybe you have tried it, maybe you have not, or maybe you haven't tried the latest features that we've released since the last few years. And this is a good opportunity for you to try it. If you have an iPad, get ZBrush. It's free on the iPad, and you can just scan that QR code to get the ZBrush on the iPad. If you haven't tried ZBrush on the desktop for some reason, you also have a free trial on this QR code. And I'm curious to see how many of you have not tried ZBrush, or maybe are new to the iPad. Maybe you just got an iPad.Maybe you have, I don't know, some iPad for your loved ones, or maybe you have some old iPad laying around and you're like, let me just try this. Let me see how it performs. Let me see how crazy can I get with ZBrush. In that case, you can just scan that QR code and get ZBrush on the iPad, and it's cycling through. It's going to keep cycling as we move on with today's little workshop. Now today, because I'm feeling excited, it's probably the ZBrush tea, guys. Like, this ZBrush tea, I don't know what it has. I don't know how much caffeine is in this, but it's definitely a lot, because I'm getting excited the more I drink it. So today we're going to do something really, really simple, but I want to use this simple project to actually answer a few of your questions that you might have, or figure out workflows and pipelines between our, sculpting workflows and a little bit more technical stuff, like the retopology brush. Let's address UVs. Let's address GoZ maybe. Let's GoZ that into Cinema 4D. Why not? And just try the new UV editor, which just released yesterday, which has been crazy. I've been very vocal about my excitement about that little project, right? The UV editor, the revamped UV editor in Cinema 4D, which is incredibly powerful, guys. If you haven't tried it, go ahead and get the free trial. It's amazing. Now, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna sculpt a little bit of a tire, something really simple. How do we make this wheel, which is a very basic wheel? I know, you guys are gonna be like, oh, that's so basic, so simple, right? But it's also simple enough where we can actually go through the entire process, hopefully within one stream, right? Let's challenge myself. I'm gonna challenge myself to actually go through this entire thing in one stream, right? So let me just push this tablet over here. You can still see my face, right? There we go. Again, if you don't, or if you think the music's too loud or anything like that, please let me know in the chat and I can adjust it. Because, you know, this is the benefit of being live. Like, you guys can just ask me questions. You guys can say, hey, what type of tea are you drinking? I'm just going to reply, I'm drinking ZBrush today. That's what I'm drinking. So we're going to go over here. Let me just show you what this is composed of. This is mostly using live booleans. This is a very bare bones, very simple project that I used as a demo for a couple of clients and for a few shows at the demo booth, right? Where we go through live boolean and we go through some fairly simplified hard surface techniques using ZBrush, right? And the tire is simple enough where we can go through the entire thing in one go. Right, so as you can see, if I turn off live booleans, this is mostly live booleans, all these patterns over here. And you could obviously just model that. You can model it using ZModeler. You can model it, you can sculpt it as well. Nothing wrong with that. There's many different ways you can go about actually doing this inside of ZBrush without having to move away from ZBrush for too long, because I know you guys get withdrawal from, you know, like if you're away from ZBrush for too long, you're like starting to hitch like your arm and stuff. And that's not good. We don't want that. We don't want you guys to be on withdrawal. So what we want to do is we want to make this entire thing in one go, right? Now, this is live booleans. This is also live booleans. And you can see that this is basically a standalone mesh. And I'm using array mesh in this case if I want to have it on both sides, which doesn't make much sense if you think about it. Like a wheel is usually tied to like the, what do you call that? The thing in the middle. I don't remember. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a mechanical engineer. And I don't own a car. So, yay, great. So, but I've seen enough cars to know that they have wheels, right? I think I'm right about this. So, the fact is that we can approach this in multiple different ways, right? I forgot everything about ZBrush. I haven't used it in like a year. Perfect. That's why that QR code over there. Sorry, dyslexia. Over there on the other side of the screen. You see that? Oh, next to the wheel. There's a QR code that's cycling through. Hopefully you can scan that real quick. If you can't, if it's too fast, if it's cycling through fast, just tell me and I can slow that down for you. There's a free trial for ZBrush going on. You guys can just scan that QR code and get it. And then you can even follow along on today's stream. Or you can get ZBrush for iPad, which is free. It has a freemium version on the iPad, which is fully featured to a certain extent. It has Dynamesh, it has live booleans, it has a lot of other stuff that you'd expect from the full version. It has over, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that one, but it has over 30 brushes if I'm not mistaken. Most of the most used brushes are there. And you get a lot of the feature complete. Like you can learn ZBrush with that freemium version. That's the thing. So in case you haven't used it in a long time and you want to get back into it, then that's a perfect opportunity for you. Now, let's get back to this. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to store this so you guys can use it as an example. I just start with any random mesh and make polymesh 3D, right? And I'm going to go and use my little gizmo, which is my preferred way, of actually going about creating primitives in ZBrush. Now, cheers from Brazil, meu amigo. Cheers. We have Portuguese-speaking people in the chat, which is always good. I always like to have the Portuguese-speaking crowd in the chat. because that's my juice. And for me, living in Germany as a Portuguese person, hearing some Portuguese, even if it's in the chat, always like rings a bell, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Portuguese. I don't know, it's the immigrant thing to do, you know. So there we go. If I go over here to this gear icon and I select to start, for starters, I'm gonna just run through and break down like booleans in case you haven't used it. Maybe you've heard about it, never used it before. If I go and select the cylinder 3D, let's start with the base of the rim, right? So this cylinder 3D, what I usually like about these primitives is that I can change it on the fly using these cones over here, right? Like with most gizmo deformers, I can make it maybe something like that. I can change the resolution on the fly as well. And what I want to do is actually show you a couple of things. Actually, I'm not going to make this, I'm going to make this like sort of like a hollow in the middle. Not a hollow, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to actually change this resolution as well. I just need one of those. I mean one of those. Come on. Work with me, baby. There we go. Work with me. There we go. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm using this tablet is not. I have to adjust this. There we go. So we have something like this. So I'm going to scale it by holding Alt and pressing that little cube over there. Look at that. Crazy rings going on. And this means that it's scaling every axis except the one I'm tweaking, right? So I'm going to scale it up ever so slightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my ZBrush brush in BZM. And I'm going to go over here inside this section. And I'm going to actually, I want to start using and leveraging polygroups from the ground up, right? I'm going to start by building the rim, by the way. So by using polygroups, I want to go and press and hold spacebar. I'm going to go polygroup and I'm going to go polyloop, meaning that that little arrow that you see over here, let's look at that. See that little arrow? That arrow is going to dictate to which direction polyloop do you want to go, right? If I went this way and I pressed it, you can see it just goes around that direction, right? If I press it that way, so up or down, it goes around that direction, going around that loop over there, right? And this is exactly what I want to do. So I want to tap that, and I'm using these polygroups now to Q-mesh this. Now, I'm going to use polygroup, polyloop a lot because this is obviously a cylindrical shape, meaning I'm going to have to use loops and lose the loops as well. Like that's what I was going to say. So I'm going to use this a lot, meaning that I'm going to create a preset for my ZModeler actions. And what this means is that it's a quick and easy way to access combinations of actions for ZModeler. Instead of having to tweak it every time you want to change your action, you can save a polygroup by polyloop. You can save a Q-mesh that leverages polygroups. You can save a Q-mesh single poly, Q-mesh flat island maybe. And then all you need to do is switch between those instead of having to change the actions one step at a time every time you need to do something else, something different. So I'm going to call this loop. Actually, I'm going to call it PG loop. Whoops, not PG goo. That's something else. PG loop or PGP loop, which is poly loop, not something else. And then what I can do is I click save. And the moment I now access my polygon actions, you can see there's a preset over there. So for example, in this case, I'm going to use Q-mesh polygroup island, and this is going to do this. So it's going to look at all of those polygroups as long as they're in an island, right? They're stranded on an island. They can't reach the other side, the other polygroup. So as long as there's one contiguous polygroup, it's going to actually operate and do a Q-mesh on those. And as long as I have my tablet over here and tap Alt, it's going to switch that polygroup. Now, if I'm going to use this a lot, again, press that little plus icon, and I'm going to go and change this preset to Q-mesh PG island. Right? And the moment I click save now, that's the wrong way, click save, and now I go over to that, now you can see I have those two presets. So I don't need to keep tweaking my ZModeler as I'm modeling. I just need to switch between those two presets, right? Which is perfect. It's way faster. Now, okay, so now with this PG island selected with this, Q Mesh PG Island. I'm gonna hold that and then hold Control, and I'm gonna drag it maybe like so, right? And then I'm gonna do another Q Mesh like that. Whoops a daisy. Oh, it's actually welding. It's not welding correctly. Well, probably because it's flipped. So let me just select those polygons, right? Like that. And I'm gonna go under my display properties and gonna click a flip. And now it's flipped correctly, meaning that I can now do either this, go to my edge actions and do close convex holes, and I can do a spline, doesn't matter. And the moment I do that, it closes that hole. I can also do this by holding my pen and doing like a bullet shape or something if I wanted to, right? In our case, we don't want that, so I'm gonna do this. And then to repeat that action, I just need to tap the other one. And there we go. Now I'm gonna change this polygroup by holding Control Shift Tap and then Control W. And now we have the middle of that rim. And obviously this is probably a little bit too thick, let's say. So one other thing that I wanna do actually is I wanna go to this mesh. I wanna go over here to the edge actions, and I wanna click Insert Single Edge Loop, and I'm gonna click, actually Do Not Crease, and I'm gonna click and create a new preset. Again, I'm creating presets the first time I engage with any tool from ZModeler, so I can save time further down the line if I have to do any heavy Z modeling further down. So I'm gonna click and type in Insert Loop Single, right? And the snapping, forget about the snapping. We'll cover that in just a second. So if I go over here now and click Save, holding that edge now gives me the presets, which means I can also change this, for example, to multiple edge loops. And let's say I want to keep polygroup versus alternate polygroup, and do not crease, and then click that plus icon, and I'm gonna call it Insert. And because obviously I have ADHD, I already forgot what I just typed. So Insert Loop, and let's call it multiple keep, which is keep polygroups, or keep PG. I can actually say PG, and it's fine. And now if I click Save and I go there, you can see that there's 2 of those actions. Now I want to save another one, which is the same, but now I want to do alternate polygroup. And I'm going to save again and forget again what I just wrote. So Insert Loop Multiple and Alt PG. I guess this works. Of course, then I'm going to forget what Alt means and whatever, because again, it's me. You're talking about myself. So alternate polygroups will give you stuff like this, where there's an alternate polygroup in between each polyloop. The keep PG is going to give you this, which is the same thing but without changing the polygroup. And the single is just a single edge loop, right? And if while I'm holding my pen, if I tap Control, it's snapping to the middle. If I tap again, it's going to snap in quarters. And if I tap again, it's going to snap with my custom, which is by a third. By default, for me, it's a third, right? Now, I just want one over here in the middle. And now all I need to do is actually Q-mesh a poly loop going around here. Or I could go to my presets, go to my presets, click PG loop, bada bing, bada boom, and then Q-mesh polygroup island, and bada bing, bada boom. See how fast that was? See why presets are really cool? So doing it again from the start. PG loop, because I know I'm gonna polygroup a poly loop over here, right? And over here, I wanna have the same edge loop over there. And now Q-mesh polygroup island. And I wanna Q-mesh this down until it's a flat surface over there, right? And then if I Q-mesh it again by tapping, it's gonna repeat the last action. And there we go, right? And now we have a bit of a more friendlier sort of rim, right? Cool, great. Now, let me preview this in actual high poly. So I'm gonna go to Geometry, dynamic subdivision. I'm going to turn on dynamic. And this is basically, if you're a Maya user, it's a 3-key or smooth preview or a smooth modifier if you're in 3ds Max, or if you're a subdivision modifier if you're using Cinema 4D. Now, I want to use the smoothing, so it's basically giving you a preview of the the subdivisions, right? I'm going to use the smoothing, but I need to crease my edges. And you can see those little points by pressing D. Those little points are the actual geometry. You see that? Look at the position of that little point over there. If I press D, it's in the same position. It's just showing me where the actual topology is. And then the rendering is just doing all the work for me and previewing what it's going to look like, right? So I'm going to go and crease by an angle. So 45 degrees, fine. So now every 45-degree shift is going to give me a crease. Now I need to go to my crease menu and change that crease level to maybe something like bada bing, bada boom, like 2, something like this. And this is still very wonky because obviously there's a pole over here. So I'm going to need yet another preset from ZModeler, and I'm going to do inset polygroup island, and I'm going to create another preset, right? So I'm going to type in inset PG island. And now click save. And now if I do this, tap to change that polygroup, and then tap again, and do that, we have a perfectly crisp center for that sort of rim, right? Coolio. Any questions so far? I don't see a lot of questions. You guys are really quiet today. I don't know if that's good or bad, because I still see some people live. So, moving on. If you guys don't have any questions, what I'm going to show you is this basic stuff for light booleans, right? So I'm going to go to my light box, and I'm going to go to Spotlight, and actually under the Maxon folder, because now we have the user light box, meaning that you can make your own light box and have your own brushes, your own alphas, whatever on the light box. And I'm going to go to Spotlight primitives and load that up. And now this means that if I press Z, I'm in Spotlight mode, and I'm going to use this little logo. Press Z again, and I'm going to center this. I'm going to use this little logo over here. Maybe make it a little bigger. And as you can see, there's these little dots over here. These are the center of the mesh, right? So if I go over there, this is the same subtool. So the whole subtool has the center, and I'm going to frame this to the mesh center in this case. So if I go over here, image center, mesh center, world center. So I'm going to do the mesh center, and I'm going to scale this up like so, right? And now what I'm going to do, first of all, I need to change my opacity. So, whoops, not the, there we go. The opacity, make it fully opaque. And then I'm going to tap this Snapshot 3D button. And by doing this, means that I have a subtool now with the same thickness as that subtool, but with the ZBrush logo, right? And this also means that it perfectly matches my surface, and I can scale it down like so, and then just cut it like that. And because these two separate subtools, I can go over here, make it a subtractive, turn on Live Boolean, and there we go. In real time, I'm cutting the ZBrush logo onto the center of that rim, right? Bada bing, bada boom. No, actually, I got that from a girlfriend. My girlfriend watches Rotten Mango all the time, and she says that all the time. So now I'm like, bada bing, bada boom, this, bada bing, bada boom, that. And also, don't forget, Paul was my teacher, right? So I might have picked that up from him as well. Never know, right? Ian, there he is. What are you making? Also, hi. To sculpt warm up, so I came to watch. Right, so I'm making a wheel, a car wheel, just to cover a bunch of different techniques like booleans and stuff like that, right? It's we have Ian in the house, everyone, so round of applause. Here's Ian Robinson is in the house. All right, pretty cool. We have this little ZBrush logo cutting into that mesh, right? And one other thing that I want to cover, a lot of people go like, yeah, but this mesh is kind of ugly. There's some triangulation, whatever. Not that Live Boolean cares, because then you're going to Boolean it. You're probably gonna have to sculpt or to remesh that at some point. But one thing I want to cover is something that's pretty cool for me, especially for a sculptural workflow, is Bevel Pro. Now, I know this mesh isn't perfect, and it's a little bit complex for us to do a perfect bevel around that. And but it is going to work for us to give us a preview of what it's like if you're doing a bake, for example, or if you're doing something that is simple enough in its essence to give you round corners. Because at the moment, if you bake this like that, it's not going to come through, right? So what I'm going to do is actually go to Z plugin with this on, with this subtool on, and whoops, sorry, wrong button over there. And it's going to look at the difference in polygroup. So I'm going to go Z plugin, going to go Bevel Pro, and press Bevel Pro. Nice. Oh, don't do that. What do you mean don't do that? Oh, the round of applause? Round of applause for Ian Robinson, everyone. Let's go. Ian in the house. Sorry, buddy. I had to do that. So, I didn't want to be mean, Ian. It's just that it's cool to have you here. So, Bevel Pro is a... Let's go to Twitch. So, Bevel Pro is basically our way of doing complex bevels on very high poly meshes. But obviously, you can also do low poly meshes, right? You can do a chamfer and then activate low poly mode. And what it basically is saying is that every one of these red dots is the resulting edges, right? The final edges after the Boolean. After the bevel, sorry. The blue dots are the original corners that you had. The corners between the polygroups, the border of those polygroups, which is what it's looking at. So, what I want to do is I want to first of all click Auto Apply, which is what this does if you just click OK, is it's going to feed you... It's going to feed you a live Boolean, a subtool with live Boolean turned on, and basically the subtractive and the additive all already set up for you, unless you click Auto Apply. So if I click Auto Apply, it's going to show you, not only show you what it's going to look like at the end, and you can see it's pretty clean already, right? It's pretty neat already for what we want. But also, you can do chamfer, and once you click OK, this is the resulting mesh immediately, right? So if I do this, you can see that we have some artifacts over there. I'm going to click preview edges, and you can see that's triangulating, right? So if I turn off triangulating junctions, it's going to not triangulate that junction in between the bevel, right? If I turn off triangulate bevel surface, then it doesn't give me triangulation on the bevel, which is exactly what I want for dynamic subdivisions to work properly, right? So turn that off, and now if I do this and click OK, bada bing, bada boom, perfect bevel around that mesh. Cool. Obviously, probably it's a little too sharp, so I'm going to do that again in case you haven't followed along. And if you haven't, shame on you. And if you're like our friend, whoops, I forgot your name, Punching Ball Z, great name, by the way. Great name. Our friend Punching Ball Z, which said, I forgot about ZBrush. I haven't used it in like a year. We have a QR code running over there. Oh, sorry, dyslexia again. Over there, right next to the actual ZBrush logo on our document. We have ZBrush for iPad free version. Scan that QR code, get it on the iPad. It's a freemium version. You get it for free. And then you have the free trial for ZBrush for desktop, right? Which includes ZBrush for iPad fully featured, includes Redshift CPU and what you're seeing right now on screen, which is ZBrush 2026.2. Right. So, again, Bevel Pro, where are you? He's hiding from me. There we go. So if I go over here, let's do the same thing. So again, I want to do a chamfer, and I want to first of all click Auto Apply so I can see what the resulting mesh is going to be. And then I want to go to Advanced, turn off Triangulate Bevel Surface, and I want to make that bevel amount slightly larger. So maybe something like that. Let's hope that works, because again, this is a triangulated joint, right? So before you had the joint where the mesh between the polygroups was triangulated, and now you have a clean sort of bevel, which is perfect for baking. So let's do that and wait a little bit. It's using the GPU, by the way. This is one of the few features in ZBrush that it actually takes advantage of the GPU. So if you're streaming like I am, it could slow things down, right? So let's see. Okay, there we go. I guess this works. Maybe do it even slightly bigger, something like that. Let's wait a little bit. Let's go. Give it a second. And actually, we forgot to polish this surface, but I mean, you get the point, right? Again, that's not going to be baked anyway. And then we'll move on to making the actual tire. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Click OK. And there we go. And now if I turn off solo mode, if I look at it, look at it from the front, there's a slight, ever so slight, like gradation over there. Obviously, you still don't have it over there because this is still not committed, but we can run Bevel Pro after we actually do the Boolean to make sure that it is kind of round. It's not that harsh of a transition, right? So I'm still going to tweak this smooth subdivision over here because I still don't really like how it's looking. Let's do maybe a little bit of a harsher crease. Maybe something like a 3. That's good. And then we can Z-model this, maybe add some supporting loops. There we go. Coolio, right? Now, because this is non-destructive, I can change that logo. I can make it bigger, whatever, later down the line. Now, for now, what I want, actually, I could have done this from the start. The other tire that you saw in the beginning was actually, I started with the actual tire, and then I made the rim, right? In our case, we're starting with the rim, and then I'm making the tire. So what I can do is actually extract a mesh over here. So I'm gonna go again with my Z modeler presets, PG loop, handy dandy PG loop, and then just tap that, and tap that. I don't know if you can see that color, so let me change that color again, and then tap that. And then change my preset to QMesh Polygroup Island, click and drag, hold Control, and change that polygroup. And there we go. And then tap that, and it's the same amount, right? And now we're gonna Control-Shift-Tap, Control-Shift-A, make sure that all your mesh, the whole mesh is selected, right? And now we're gonna invert that, go to Split, Hidden. And now we have a separate subtool that we can start working with. Now the cool thing about this is, and let's see how this works, is that we can actually, let me think. You can actually bridge those closed holes. There we go. Right, I can do something like this. Like so. And do something like that. And then maybe delete. Maybe not this. So I'm gonna run an auto groups. So I'm gonna go polygroups, auto groups. I want to make sure that those are separate. Same thing goes over here, auto groups. And I want to delete that one and delete these two. I'm going to delete those, delete hidden. Let's make sure that they match. There we go. Let me think. All right, let's see if this works. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Let's see. And actions. Close holes. No, it's not gonna work. If I do this, yep, it's just gonna go to the middle. I'm gonna have to bridge this. Whoops. Is it giving me that? Do I have a? Oh, look at that. Beautiful. So if I go over here, let me see if I can bridge 2 holes. Bada bing, bada boom. It's not working. That's interesting. Well, we could do something else. We could do, actually, I'm overcomplicating. Let's go back where we have this little thing over here. And let's actually make this a little bigger. So by holding shift, I'm just moving that face over there. I could turn off live boolean for now, so it's easier for you to see. And do the same thing over here. I'm gonna hold shift, move it like that. All right, give me a second. There we go. Maybe this is too thick. Let me just push it down ever so slightly. And what I can do is actually go insert edge loop, multiple edge loops. And actually, I have a preset for that. So let's use the presets. Multiple edge loop, keep group. And as I'm dragging this, you know that, oh, actually, the preset is wrong. So I have to do interactive elevation over here. And undo not crease edges, and do that. And now we have a little bit of a rounding going on. It's creased. This is actually a bug, actually. I just found out. There we go. Look at that. We're always finding stuff out. See? On stream, obviously. So there we go. So I'm gonna go do this. Actually, I think this is fixable if I just uncrease it temporarily. So uncrease all. And then do that. Exactly. There we go. Uncrease all. Let's see, maybe something like that. And we actually don't need the crease anyway. And I'm gonna make this even maybe slightly bigger, and then do that while dynamic is on. So it'd be something maybe like that. Maybe I like that. There we go. And now I can do the same thing. Just tap that, and we have it on both sides, right? Obviously, this is a thin, very, 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 very thin wheel, right? Looks like a motorbike wheel or something. I don't know. It's very, very thin. So later, we can do something else with this, which is going to be interesting to see. So we have this going on. This is the base. It's going to be the base for our little tire. And one thing that we can start doing is exploring ways that we can start concepting and thinking about the tire patterns, right? One cool thing I like to do is doing the little creases over here around that tire. By crease, I mean actually, sorry, like it's not really a panel line, but it's like a scribe that goes around. And this is one of my favorite methods. So I'm gonna actually commit to those subdivisions. I'm gonna duplicate this temporarily. I don't need a polygroup, live boolean group actually. And you guys rename your subtools. Sorry, don't look at that. Like, forget that. Let's ignore that whole thing and actually ignore and actually rename your polygroup. So I'm gonna do wheel, scribe, and this one I'm gonna do wheel. Whoops, wheel. Block out. Call it block out. And here's a cool thing. Let's see if this actually runs, because I have this little script. Since Ian's in the room, let's go over here to Python scripting, load a script, which I have over here. Let me see, development, Python tests. It's not here. Where did I put that? There you go. Rename all subtools. And if I click, and then actually it's not loading. That's great. That's great. It's probably not set up properly. That's my bad. Python output. Let's do reload. It's not loading this script for some reason. Let's see if this is. It's not loading. Forget it. Probably I didn't set it up for this session. It's not loading. Not loading. It's a script that Ian built a few versions ago for renaming subtools automatically using Python, right? So let me just dock this over here real quick, and I'm not going to open up Visual Code on stream because most people would. Is it under macros? Let's see if it's under. Whoops. You mean like in Z script? New macro and macro clear output. No, let's just load it again. It's not loaded. Doesn't matter. Let's see if it actually loads. No, this is just a scripted window. Classic behavior, display, Python output, and script window. Yeah, forget that. So let me go to macro. Let's see. Delete all. No, it's not. Up to ground. Delete. It's not over here. Rename. It should be a button, right? This is what you're supposed to. It's supposed to do. It's supposed to open up a button. Yep, it's not. Doesn't matter. Okay. We'll dedicate that to a separate stream. Doing Python stuff. So it's okay. Now, let's go back to this. And I'm going to call this rim. It's going to be the rim. Under the new asset directory menu. Probably. I don't know. It's probably that. That's what it. Yeah, let's skip it. What's the new wheel or quick menu feature? What are you talking about? Wheel quick menu feature. All right, so let's go back to this. And now I'm going to commit the dynamic subdivisions. And I'm going to delete lower. And now we have something like this. I'm going to actually do this as a single polygroup so you guys can see what I'm doing. And what I like to do is use a little brush with a slice curve brush. I'm going to cut this like so. Turn on local symmetry. And I'm going to mirror and weld on the Z-axis. Actually, I cut the wrong side. So I'm going to mirror and weld on the Z-axis. And what we can do is actually go to stroke, go to curve functions, and frame the polygroup border. And as I frame this polygroup border, and I don't know if I like where it's standing. Actually, let me go back and turn on transparency. See, actually, let me turn off that visualization real quick, and I can see where that rim is. So I'm going to try to be as precise as I can over there. And now I can mirror and weld on the Z-axis. And now I can go to stroke and frame polygroup mesh, polygroup border. And now we have a little curve going around that. So I'm going to load a little brush, which is called Extrude Profile 2, which is going to give me some scribe profiles, right? You have to imagine that this is sort of like your chisel, right? So I'm going to click, let's say, maybe I want the scribe 09. And the brush size is going to dictate the draw size. Actually, it's going to dictate what it's going to look like. So now if I tap the surface, ooh, this is too big. So I'm going to push it down to maybe like 13. And now we have a scribe or a mesh that goes around that tire perfectly and perfectly evenly, right? And now all I need to do, because this is masked, let me turn off the transparency so you can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to go to split and split unmasked points. And now I have this as a separate subtool, which means I can go to subtractive, turn on live boolean, and bada bing bada boom, we have a little cut going around that mesh. I think they're talking about Pablo script. Yeah, probably. That's what they're. I saw it where you append a new subtool, select brushes, key to be a custom menu. A new subtool or select brushes to be. You're talking something like that, where you just click a hotkey and it opens up a subpalette, a custom menu. Because if that is what you're talking about, that's pretty straightforward in ZBrush to do that. Let me know if that is what you're talking about. If not, if you're talking about the radial wheel menu, like natively we have not a wheel menu, but we have a wheel in the quick menu feature on the iPad. And but it's probably not what you're talking about. So there we go. So another thing that I like to do, let's say we want some text going around this tire, which is something that I didn't do for this one. right? This was just a demo. So what I want to do is I want to, again, isolate this, and I'm going to go to Z plugin, and there's a cool little feature here that a lot of people neglect. And I hate when people neglect ZBrush features. I get all riled up, and I need to finish my tea now. Sorry, it's the ZT. See, I'm giving you ZBrush tea, so that's why I get it. It's sorry. So I'm gonna go here to the text 3D and vector shapes subpalette. And what this does, it allows you non-destructively to create text with any font that you have installed in your machine. So if I click new text, and let's say, let's type in Rodolfo is goofy. Sometimes I can be goofy, like that, and press enter. And now I have Rodolfo is goofy as an actual mesh. But not only that, I can actually edit this. Let me just dock this over here real quick and undock the Z. I actually never docked the Z script. That's great. So, and now I can change. Let's say I edit the text and I'm gonna say Rodolfo is not goofy, which is a lie, a blatant lie. It's gonna regen that mesh for me, right? And the cool thing about this is that I can change the font on the fly without actually editing the text. And it's changing the geometry as well. So I'm gonna go for something. I'm not a designer, a graphic designer, so I don't even know how to call half of the fonts that you see here. But, ooh, look at that. It's parchment paper. This is great. It's wonderful. So I'm gonna go maybe with something more, I don't know. What font does, I don't know, those tires use? I don't know. It has to be something like very bold. So I'm gonna maybe go over here. Let's do something that's bold. Let's do, no, this is too goofy. This is too, it looks like Comic Sans or something. I don't like that. Let's go for I don't know, maybe something like this. I don't know, Century Gothic. No, this looks good. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So this is what I want to do, right? I want to use this to wrap around that cylinder, right? So Rodolfo is goofy. So I'm gonna edit this, and I'm gonna actually keep the Rodolfo is goofy part, right? Wingfoot Sons. Great. Let me see if I have that installed. Let me see. So Wingfoot. No. Unfortunately, I don't have that installed in my machine. Let's try. I have Montserrat. There we go. Let's do Montserrat. Right? And then I can just scale this up, right? And I can edit as long, like I can change this to black italic. I can do bold. I'm gonna do bold, or maybe I can do light if it supports that. Let's see, extra light, or just italic, or light. Let's do medium, maybe medium and italic. I don't know, maybe italic. Yeah, maybe let's do italic. Let's do semi-bold italic. This looks good enough, right? For like a sports kind of a thing. And then let's make this a little thicker. And now it doesn't need to commit, like you don't need to commit or anything. You just use this, right? So you can just push it up. And before I do anything else, because it's centered around that wheel, because we're using the center of the world, right, to frame our wheel, because I know I'm going to use array mesh. I'm going to go to array mesh and lock position, and potentially, no, not lock size, actually. I want to first do something like this, where I'm going to scale this down to, yeah, something like that. That works. And now I can lock size. And what I can do now is turn off array mesh, and I'm going to do a bend curve, not a bend curve, sorry, bend arc. And I can push it up like that, and I'm going to arc it down, maybe not 45, maybe something like that. I mean, I'm guessing over here, right? And then I can scale it up like that, and now I can make it subtractive. Now, one of the things you might wonder is, wait a minute, but this is flat on this side, and it's not gonna match that curved shape. So, that was loud. So, what I'm gonna do, where's the, oh Jesus, I forgot the name of the brush. Matchmaker, there it is, Matchmaker. I'm gonna use that brush, there we go. Ian knows, see, that's why I have him here. He's my buddy. He's supporting me while I'm running on caffeine here. I'm sorry, Z-fiend here, and I'm drinking my tea. There we go. So now, if we do this with a Matchmaker brush, I'm just gonna click and drag that over, and it's supposed to match that surface. It's not matching because I'm dumb and I didn't do this properly. So I'm gonna click and drag all the way till the end. And now, whoa, it's not matching. Oh, it's a little crazy. Let's actually Dynamesh this real quick. Let's do a little click and drag. Let me actually match this resolution over here. Let's see. It's 400, so it should be maybe a little higher. Yeah, I need more topology, right? That's what I meant. That's what I figured. So I'm gonna click Dynamesh, and I guess this is enough, right? It doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're gonna wear it out with sculpting later. So Matchmaker, wrong. It's still giving me issues. Let's re-Dynamesh this. Interesting. Do I need to be like on the surface? Like so? No. That's interesting. Let me move it closer, actually. Something like that. Let's see if this works. Nope. It's not working. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Yes. That's pretty crazy. It's giving me the banding effect. Z intensity, yeah, probably. Let's see. You see, but basically Ian is my IT at this moment. is basically my IT guy in the background, running, troubleshooting. No, now it's too low, right? So, but it was working just a moment ago. That's interesting. Let's do that again, shall we? See that topology? Let's do one polygroup just in case. Nope, not matching. Make it closer. Increase that intensity. The form is not active. Not to exit. No, it's cool. Like I actually appreciate the support here because I don't do this very often anyway. Right? Let me actually reset the brush just in case I did something crazy with this brush. Let's do this maybe a little thinner. Let's make sure that it's not. It's actually not working. Great. Its intensity doesn't seem to be the problem. There's some bending happening over here. Let's change this focal shift. Let's do like 0 focal shift. Let's see if this is the issue. Nope. But it's supposed to match that. No, I turned off. Yeah, I turned off the deformer. Let's go back to the topology we had before, Dynamesh. And let's do this with without the. Yeah, it's giving me some weird bending, which is very, very interesting. Let me try something a little crazier. Let's Dynamesh this. Whoops. Let's Dynamesh this, and now let's use the knife curve brush. Yeah, it's like beta testing. Let's try live booleans off. Probably. Live boolean's a good idea. Whoever said that, props to you. Let's see. It's not looking at the entire thing. That's interesting. Do I have perspective on? No. It's not cutting that section over here. It's not cutting that particular letter. Let me just change that polygroup. It's not. Doesn't matter. Let's see if it works anyway. So, again, matchmaker. Let's see if it works. Oh, there you go. Let's see if it was actually the knife or the live boolean. Yeah, it was live boolean. Congrats to you, whoever. I don't want to butcher your name because your name is very, very long. But it was live boolean, of course. Of course, because this is using the renderer to project the mesh. See, this is, we're doing public testing here, live on ZBrush Live. There we go. So, let me do that with a bigger draw size, and let me do that like that. And now I can move it and see if it actually matches. Sorta. Let me do that again, smaller draw size. And let's reset the brush again to see if it was actually this. Perfect. Perfecto. Oh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Actually, this part is still giving me issues for some reason. And it's being stupid. Let me just make sure that this is not, the gizmo is not really deformed. Is it actually? There's something wrong with this mesh actually. Let me see. There we go. This might work a little better. Perfect. Right. Okay. Carrying on. If I go over here now and click live boolean and turn on live boolean, ideally, we have a piece of text that is probably too big now that I look at it. But there you go. Once this is done, I know that my array mesh is still locked, right? The lock position. If I go to transpose and turn on my transpose, it should. There we go. My pivot, which is that little yellow dot over there, the yellow ring, is the center of my array mesh, meaning that I can go to rotate, in this case in the Z axis. Let's do 360, and I can repeat this how many times I want. In this case, I want to do something like that, right? Rodolfo's goofy, Rodolfo's goofy, Rodolfo's goofy. Try to say that 3 times without without an issue, right? Okay, so this is 2 things you can do. Another thing that you can do is actually, again, you can do matchmaker. You can actually sculpt on the surface. And one thing you can do for sculpting is actually use the high poly mesh. So I'm going to actually go to stroke, curve function to actually click delete. And now in order to sculpt scribe lines, or what we call scribe lines, right? I'm going to go back before a time, back in ancient times, before there was any triangulation, because usually slice curve brush has a chance of triangulating parts of your mesh. And I'm gonna do something real quick, something real crazy, which means that I'm gonna store a morph target. That's another technique. I'm gonna store a morph target. And this means that ZBrush remembers this state of the mesh. First of all, let me test something real quick. Let's see if I have enough resolution. Actually, no, which is perfect. So I can divide this one more time before I store the morph target. Store morph target. And there we go. I think that's enough, right? So now I stored the morph target. And now I'm going to use a little brush called the scribe. No, actually not the scribe. The chisel brush, right? Which has a brush tip. So it's kind of like your actual chisel when you're doing panel lining on a hard surface piece, like on a model kit or something like that, or you know, like on a Gundam when you're doing custom builds and stuff like that. And this basically works kind of like this. And because we have a morph target, you know that thing where, let me delete the morph target, where you're just sculpting like that, and then you want to carry on, and it's doing a double, sort of like a double sculpt over there. I'm probably going to need more geometry than this. Let's go crazy. Let's do 26 million, right? So I'm going to do something like this, and even if I tweak my lazy snap, if I go to stroke and go to the lazy mouse and increase that lazy snap, meaning that I can do this, and then if I want to carry on exactly where I left off, I can go over there, and now it's carrying on. But you can see that it does a double stroke on that particular position. This is where the morph target comes into play, because it's storing that height of the mesh. So the moment I do this, and then I rotate and I go over there and carry on, whoops, it's actually not big enough, the brush. I need to do bigger lazy snap. So if I do that, and then I go over here and I do that, it's not doing a double stroke. It's actually a good idea if I use a mouse for this, because the tablet pressure sensitivity is going to give you a gradation of that, right? So I could either do that or go to preferences and go to tablet and turn off use tablet, right? So let's do something like this, and I'm going to use a radial symmetry. So I'm going to do z-axis radial, and I can now start sculpting patterns like that, right? And obviously, like Boolean is giving me issues again, but that's mostly because I have two now for some reason. Control it, and I don't need that one. So this one actually I did Control Z. That's probably the reason. There we go. This is the scribe, which I don't need at the moment. I actually need the scribe just to preview, potentially preview, if I can make this clip through that, right? So I can do transparency. And maybe I want this to repeat a little bit more. So I'm going to repeat this by 16, for example. And now I can do this and hold Alt, and obviously, not Alt, sorry, Shift. I'm going to do Shift like that, and then like that, right? And then potentially, because now I'm snapping, see, it's snapping. And I want to do something like this, and then something like that, right? And then maybe I want to do a little bit of a design like this, right? So now I'm designing, I'm concepting, right? I'm concepting my tire patterns. This looks weird. This looks really sci-fi-ish. That's not what I wanted. So I'm gonna actually do this and do that like we had before, sorta. But then I'm gonna do maybe just a straight line. So like that, right? This is gonna be my pattern. This is too thin. The whole tire is too thin. I should have done this after resizing everything, but it doesn't matter for the demo. So once we have this is pretty cool, right, already. And we can basically bake this down onto a Boolean. So if let's say I'm fine with this result, and I want to turn off transparency, and let's say I want to do some patterns over here, right? So maybe I want to go a little bit higher on that thickness. Do something like that. Or I can do another one of those crazy Booleans, right? So I'm going to do something like, not a knife. I don't want to use the knife. I want to use the slice curve, and I'm going to do something like this. Actually, I have subdivisions. Careful about that. Delete lower, and now I can do this. It's gonna cut. Takes a little longer because it's. Let me turn off those lines, because obviously now we have a much denser mesh. But what I can still do is I can still go over here to stroke, curve functions, frame mesh, and we have that curve. Do we have a curve? No, actually, that's interesting. Let's see. Stroke, frame mesh. Do we have a curve? Let's see. Let me go to my extrude profile tool. No, we don't have a curve. Let's see. Maybe it's the morph target. Again, morph target messes things up sometimes. So I can always use the history recall anyway. So let's do frame mesh again, one more time. Not working. Let's go back. It's probably too much geometry for that. Let's do... let me duplicate this just in case. So I'm going to duplicate this one. And I'm going to go back a few steps. Dun, 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 dun. And bada bing, bada boom. There we go. And now I'm going to... Actually... Let me duplicate this one because this is much lighter. So I'm gonna delete that. This is gonna be my Boolean thing, and now I screwed it up, and and now I don't have that pattern anymore. I screwed up because I did a trim thing over here. Doesn't matter. Let's do this again. So again, this has subdivisions. Let me delete those subdivisions. Oh, we have 6 million over here, so I'll delete lower. Cut that. Maybe over there is perfect. And now again, stroke, frame mesh, and now we have a curve. Great. So because now we have a curve, I'm gonna go to this profile and I'm gonna do something different. Let me do this scribe 08. Brush size, maybe even smaller. And let's see how this works. So split hidden unmasked points, sorry. And now this needs to be a subtractive. And now we have something along these lines. No pun intended. So delete those. Do we actually have it? Oh yeah, I have an extra tire here for some reason. There we go. Cool. Great. Beautiful. So because now I screwed up, I'm going to duplicate this one, and this is still non-destructive, meaning that there's no cuts over here. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did, which is the chisel brush, and go to morph target, store morph target. And the beauty of this is that you can actually erase using this scribe, chisel brush. So I'm going to do something like that, something like that, something like this. So it'd be something like that, right? And then if I do, oh, actually I forgot radial symmetry. And I just go like that. There we go. Radial symmetry. Let's do something like this, something like that, something like that, and something like that. Probably a bad idea too. Yeah, there we go. That's beautiful. And of course I need to hide the other tire. And now I can do this. But this is not in the middle, so I'm gonna guess sort of. And there we go. Right? And we can keep sculpting. Now let's say I don't like this and I want to erase a section. So let's say I want to do maybe something like that, right? Or I want to do a cut over here, right? And then erase that one. I can use the morph brush and just morph it out. See that? And it works with radial symmetry because I'm morphing between the old morph target, the old status of the brush, right? And this status of the brush. So let's say this is great. Now I go back to my chisel brush and I'm gonna do some crazy stuff. Maybe do something like that. Needs to be sort of the same. So it'd be something like that. I don't know. This is. I'm not a tire designer, guys. Come on, give me a break. So once we have this, and of course this needs to be above that in order to work with the booleans. Anything that's below that is going to affect whatever's above. And now we can actually design, for example, a shape, like let's say it's an organic shape, so I'm going to do stuff like this. Obviously this gets a little squashed because we're looking at it from a specific angle. So I can actually start over here because we have lazy snap turned on. So I can do, let me get in closer. And then rotate that, like that. And I want to keep going with my stroke. And I'm using, of course, pressure sensitivity, which is not ideal. Turn off tablet. So again, let's go over here. Actually, let's make it even smaller. So it would be something like this. And then rotate, snaps. And this is where the sculpting aspect comes into play. And bada bing, bada boom. So it'd be something like this, right? Where you have that little pattern. Obviously, I mean, I would need more geometry for this, but you get the point, right? Cool. You can use Sculptors Pro as well for that. And this is pretty cool already, right? Now, the other thing I want to do is I figured out this is in the wrong, the wrong side of that. I figured it out before, right? When we shifted to the other side. So I'm going to basically do temporarily, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically do an array mesh over here. Array mesh, lock position, lock size. I'm going to reset so the pivot goes back to the center. There we go. Why is this? There we go. So it's in the center of that tire. And now I'm going to mirror in the Z axis. And obviously then mirror on the X, because then the ZBrush logo would look weird. And that's sacrilege over here. So there is no trick in ZBrush to continue to stroke once started. Lifted the hand, try to continue. Yes, there is. I just showed that. Yep. It always performs a pit. No, it doesn't. No, 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 no. No, no, no. Okay? Let me recap that, right? Let's go over here and do that on a sphere because it's simpler, right? And it doesn't risk screwing up my beautiful tire that I just spent an hour making. So let's go to the tool palette, click over here. Let's start with the sphere 3D. So it's very simple, right? I'm going to actually divide this. I'm not going to use Dynamesh just so it's cleaner, right? The geometry, whoops. The geometry is a little cleaner. Let's go crazy. Let's go 8 million. On a sphere for some reason. Delete lower. What you want to do, well, what you're experiencing is basically this. I don't know if you're trying it while we're here on stream. What you're experiencing is something like, okay, you have lazy snap, right? I have this is not, by default, this is not here. So you'd experience it like that, right? Uh-oh, it's auto-saving. Give it a second. It's auto-saving. There we go. So what you're experiencing is something like this, where you're sculpting, everything's nice, then you want to rotate, and then it's snapping, but it's giving you this double stroke, right? Right? So you want to do this, and then go over there. Okay, you want to close the shape. Great. You're going to go over here. Oh no, double stroke. Right? What I'm telling you to do before you go crazy with your chisels, you start hurting people with chisels. You want to go down here on the tool palette and store a morph target. What this means that ZBrush will remember this surface information. So it will remember where is that brush. You see where the brush is standing on the surface? That's where it will feed the stroke, right? So whenever you're doing this, and then you're doing this, you see, there's no double cut. So even if you want to do a full circle, you can go over here, and bada bing, bada boom. See? No double stroke, right? Like that. And you're not gonna experience any double stroke. I can even just start, crunching this crazy. You see, it doesn't go beyond that thickness in a sense. No, it's not exclusive to chisel brushes. So if I do this with a Damien standard, obviously you need let's turn on lazy mouse. This works with lazy mouse, right? So be careful. So lazy mouse, let's do lazy radius and lazy snap. If I do this, See? No double stroke. Oh, actually, it is doing, but it's because it's soft, right? The alpha is soft. So if I do this, like for example, with a focal shift, it's not going beyond that state. It's just that because it's a soft gradation, it looks like it's giving you a stroke over there. But you can see that in the middle, it's actually just doing, like if I choose a harsher alpha over here, so something like this, see? It's not going any further than that. So see, so let's try and do this with a regular focal shift. So something like this, you see? It's not going beyond that. It's just that the alpha you're picking, and it's super soft, right? The gradation is super soft. Then it gives you the impression that it's actually doing double stroke, but it's not. It's just that because the alpha is super soft, then you're gonna get something like, let's say something like this, and then it's gonna look like, even this one, like you can see, it's gonna look like it's stretching a little bit because there's the soft gradation, it's affecting that fall off. But where in the alpha, like there's a part where it's full white, meaning it's 100% the Z intensity. In that area, it's not gonna go below that. It's not gonna do a double stroke over there. So that is an important detail. So you can use this with whatever brush. You can build your own chisel brush, right? And then just, maybe your own panel line. Look at that, it's a fish. Let's do a little fish. Like, let's do a fish that's like, oh no. Oh, let me just turn off that lazy mouse. It's a dead fish. Fish in the water. Look at that, beautiful. This looks like some kid drew this on the surface. All right, cool. Is that clear? Like, are you trying it while we're doing this? If you have any more issues, let me know. We're doing public testing here, guys. Like today was all about public testing. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to make sure this is running on both sides. So this letter and this chisel as well goes on both sides. So I can actually mirror this without local symmetry on, because I know this is running it's on the center of the scene. So I'm gonna go geometry, modify topology, and mirror and weld on the Z-axis. And now we have both sides going. And this, I want to mirror and weld with local symmetry turned on, mirror and weld. Bada bing, bada boom. And now the same thing goes for this, the letters, where this, there we go. So without symmetry on, modify topology, mirror and weld. Actually, on the Z-axis, that would be a good idea. Or actually, even better, non-destructive. If we want to be non-destructive about this, we can go to array mesh and we can do append a new transform state, right? And now if you look at the actual pivot, it's in the center, right? Obviously this ruined my sculpt because now it's freaking mirrored, and I don't need it to mirror. Actually, this is perfectly fine. I just need to sculpt that actually on the other side. But I can do array mesh on this one, right? Not on this one, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. The second transform state, what we're gonna do is we're gonna mirror on the Z-axis, on the X-axis, on the Z-axis, sorry. Jesus, there we go. And now I want to mirror on the X-axis as well, because otherwise you have to do rewind, right? You have to read it backwards, which is not ideal. And that would be a nightmare for people like me, because I have a hard time with words and stuff. So there we go over here. This is probably a little, I don't know. So maybe because it's non-destructive, I can go over here and actually, because this is still a single piece of mesh, right? I can still go here and do something maybe like that, right? Where it sort of matches that chisel, right? And edit it non-destructively. The same thing goes for the other side, right? Where now we can actually go over here and do the same thing with the chisel brush. And actually, let me test something out. Let's say I want to mirror and weld, right? But I want to retain this pattern. I'm gonna test this, right? No, actually, I don't think it would work. Let's see. Let's see if it actually works. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, right? And I'm gonna mirror and weld. So let's mirror and weld on the Z-axis. Bada bing, bada boom. Ruined my center pattern over here, which is not what I was expecting. So, because I'm dumb, right? Because it's mirroring. So if it's non-symmetrical, it's gonna give you non-symmetry. But what I could do is actually two things. One is I want to go back in time, a time before dinosaurs, where we had no sculpt. Control and tap that undo history. Go over here, and now what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is flat. This section in the middle. So I'm going to mask that, flip that, and now I'm going to go to project and project history. And let's wait on it a little bit. Let's just give it a second, guys. Give it a second. My caffeine is running out, so I'm slowly down. I'm becoming more slow motion. So there we go. It's not perfect. Again, it's also because of the distance, and also because of this. I want to make sure that it's polished as well, right? So I can actually run a polish. This is super high res, by the way. This is 6 million polygons. It's not crazy high res, but for stuff like this, it takes a while. So bear with me. I'm gonna polish by groups again, and maybe with radial symmetry, Z intensity all the way to 100, and doing something like this. And now go back to project. Just because of the topology, right? Because you can get pretty crazy topology over here. And I'm gonna go to my subtool again, and I'm increasing that distance ever so slightly, project history. And now it's gonna take a little long, probably like 10 seconds or something. Let's see. Oh, it's gonna be more. Of course I had to jinx it. There we go. It's gonna be like 20 seconds. Ooh, thank you. Oh, look, it's Heather. Hi. Let's see. Okay, so it's flat, and it's nice, and it matches this exactly, but only a small portion of it, because I masked that other section, right? So now what I want to do, because it's flat, right? What I want to do is I want to go back in time again, and go back to a time where I only had that pattern, and control tap that, and I'll go all the way back to the future. No pun intended. And just project history again. So now if I project history, with that mask still on, it's gonna project the details back from before we did the mirror and weld. It's basically projection. Instead of duplicating the mesh and doing all these crazy things, imagine this mesh has like 20 million polygons, 40 million polygons. It could be very, very slow, especially if you have multiple meshes, multiple subtools on your stack, right? So now all of a sudden we're back with our little pattern, and we have the patterns on both sides, and it's mirrored, meaning that there's the same topology on both sides, right? And we have this going, right? And I don't know if this looks like a motorcycle, probably. So I might need to change my references here, guys, because I was not planning on doing a motorcycle wheel. It's too thin for like a car or something. But this is the gist of it. Now, the second thing that we want to do is work a little bit more on the rim. And I'm going to ask you to hold on for 5 seconds, because I need to use the loo. All right, and by loo I mean bathroom. I just thought it was funny for me to use since we have someone from Britain here, and like from the UK in the chat. I felt it was an interesting take there. All right, I'll see you guys in just a second. I'll leave you with my little start screen, and I'll be right back. Sorry, that's too much noise. Yeehaw! I am back. There we go. Much better. All right, so let's get back to it. This is the state we're at, and let's work a little bit on this rim, like the rim. So this is still very low poly. Let me turn on the lines again. Let me save the project just in case. And what we want to do is, obviously, we can start sculpting a little bit of that, like those, you know, indents. And this is I'm probably gonna have to do a little bit of scaling so it matches that boolean over there. So one thing we could do, because if I scale this, obviously then this whole boolean is gonna get thickened. So what I can do is actually use my transpose all selected subtools, and then holding Control Shift, I can choose which subtools I want to transform, basically. And this includes scaling. So I can scale this, and it's scaling both. So I'm going to go in and zoom in and scale that like so. Perfect. Great. There's a little bit of some Z fighting happening over here. Is this a rendering issue? No, it's the booleans, of course. Oh, this should go actually below everything, because again, booleans are looking at the order of your subtools, and this is now looking like it's too thick, probably. So I'm gonna go again to transpose all selected subtools, scale it down a little bit. Works, I guess. Scale it slightly. Oh, perfect. Right? Right. So what can we do for this? Right? We could use array mesh. Right? We could use Z-modeler. We could Z-model this whole thing, right? You know, circular sort of shape. Or if you have an alpha or something like that, right? Or even better, what if we want this logo to be, let's say, to weld perfectly like this? So let's say I'm duplicating this logo. Let's just try it out. Like I'm concepting here, right? So let's do a little bit of some scaling. Scale it down a little bit, scale it up, like so. This is sort of what Henry Cervenka has on his car, which is our pro project, right? Where it's the ZBrush logo, kind of like this, and we're getting both logos on both sides, which is a little bit of weird, because a rim this wouldn't happen on an actual rim. Just probably need to go over here, maybe. This in order for it to make any sense whatsoever, right? We could change this shape anyway. So I'm going to scale it down. And one thing I can do is actually start using either, I don't know, like anchor brushes to actually deform this, right? And make it more organic, kind of a thing. I don't know if I like this because it's not really centered. And if it is centered, it gets clipped, which I'm not sure I also enjoy. Or it could be that I could do something like this. Maybe. I don't know. I don't like this. Okay. Forget that. Okay. Forget that. Let's actually just sculpt something. Let's do some... how would you deal with filleting the booleans when you get to the next stage? Right. That's part of the thing that I showed before. So let's actually do that before we go into the rim, because we have 20 minutes, and this is probably a stage where we would need to be a little bit more creative and less time pressure. So let's say I have this boolean, right? And I want it to start over here. I actually want to use a folder, and in case I want to select what's on the folder instead of dragging everything, I want to use my transpose, select multiple subtools again. In this case, I want to select exactly the tire. Everything else is not selected, right? So that means that now if I click new folder, while this is active, you have to have the pizza box over here, right? Pizza box is king. If you have this turned on, and you click new folder, ZBrush is going to say several of the visible subtools are currently active with multi-transpose. Would you like to create a folder containing these subtools? So now if I click yes, all of the subtools that are included in that selection are now over here. You can see I have 4 subtools. So if I basically just isolate this folder over here, this is all it's getting, right? There's some issues there with sculpting. I guess I sculpted that by mistake. Doesn't matter, we can fix that later. But this is what we're getting, right? So now I can Boolean this, and I'm going to Boolean with dynamic subdivision. I'm going to check if this resolution is good enough. So I'm going to go in and see if I add dynamic subdivision is actually, it looks better even with a couple of subdivisions. So I'm going to go, let's see, a couple of subdivisions is good. And because this is already 63,000. So maybe something like that. I don't know. I guess this is more than fine, I guess. Let's see if it doesn't, if it's not too heavy. This one as well, so press D to enter dynamic subdivision mode. And I want to do maybe a couple of divisions here. And then the same thing goes, maybe I don't want a couple, I just want one. It can be a little faceted, it's not that big of an issue. This is just so I can showcase it to you and it's faster. This is the letters, so I'm fine with this. And this is the cut. I guess we're good, right? So now I'm gonna press that little gear icon and I'm gonna click Boolean with dynamic subdivision. And I'm gonna wait for it to do its thing. It's gonna give me an extra subtool with that Boolean. Finishing up my ZT. ZT. Let's see what the result is. What you're talking about is because the resultant Boolean is going to have obviously very harsh edges, and that's not good for baking, which would be the next stage, right? This would be the stage after I model everything, after I finished my concept, right? This is not finished at all. Maybe I want to change things up. I want to play around with it a little bit more. So obviously this would be something I would think after that stage. But since you asked, I'm gonna show it. So let's see. Okay, there we go. And we get this U-mesh, which now has committed booleans, right? And you can see, well, there's that little issue over there, which is the problem with the actual boolean itself, because I sculpted inside that boolean. So I'm gonna see if that's the issue. Yeah, it's the issue with every single. Let's do this on a radial of 16. That's what I had before. And let's actually do that and grow this selection. Or actually, let's select this one and go auto groups. Go to polygroups, auto groups. And now select this one. And Control Shift X to grow, and now I want to deselect those, right? Control Shift Q, and we get that whole polygroup, which is exactly what we want. Control W. Great. So now it's the same polygroup. This is important because Bevel Pro is looking at the polygroup borders, right? So what I want to do is obviously this one, for example, it makes no sense for me to have this as a separate sort of polygroup. So I'm going to click this, Control Shift X, Control Shift Q, and Control Shift click that one. Click that one. And why is this all weird? That's interesting. Probably the stroke type is giving me this weird. And you can also see that it committed the array mesh as well. So you don't need to actually commit the array mesh before applying the boolean, right? So I'm gonna hide that one. Control on that one as well. There's another one over there. Like that O was just an issue overall, like that one. There's a D over here with an issue. It's because my stroke was not, this is replicated 3 times, and I did an 8 or 16 stroke, which is not divisible by 3. So then it gives you that little issue. So Control Shift click, and now Control double. And now we don't have a border inside that, you know, that little boolean over there, right? And it's Dynameshed, so obviously the resolution is not the best, but it doesn't really matter. We were just testing out stuff. Right, so what I want to do now is, obviously this sculpted part is already sort of filleted, right? Because it's really just sculpted on the surface, right? But anything that's booleaned, it gets you a polygroup border and triangulation. And this is not ideal if you're retopoing and then you have this at a 90-degree angle with your retopo mesh. In some scenarios, in this scenario, I think you'll still bake because it's sort of round. It's not perfectly flat, right? Like if you look at this profile over here, well, actually here it's kind of flat, but it's still curved slightly, especially over here. And this will bake you if the normals are smooth on your final mesh, right? Your baking mesh, then that's not going to be an issue. But for some reason, let's say you have a pattern drawn on a shape or a retopoed shape that is absolutely flat with hard normals, right? Then, and you lock your normals, then that's going to be an issue for baking, right? So what you want to do is you want to go over here, Z plugin, Bevel Pro, click Bevel Pro. And you're going to get the ability to bevel any mesh at any resolution, obviously depending on your machine and your GPU mostly, because this is running the GPU. So it's going to be a little clunky for me because I'm streaming. Okay, so be warned. Thread lightly. Be warned. Okay. And let's see if we can finish this. No more tea. It's taking a little bit longer. Again, I'm streaming. Any day now. Yeah, being, streaming using the GPU, and then this is one of those features that uses GPU. So there you go. So anything that has a polygroup border has the potential to be beveled, regardless of topology, right? So there's obviously an issue here picking up that polygroup. Like if you go to our original mesh, there's supposed to be a polygroup there. But for this example, I'm just going to show you this. And you can see that the blue one is where the former polygroup border used to be, right? So this is the points. These are the actual vertices that were there before. And this is the resulting vertices after the bevel, right? What you want to do is you want to click auto apply. Otherwise, it's just going to give you a mesh that then you have to boolean, and it's still non-destructive, right? Which might be what you want. You can do a bevel, you can do a chamfer, right? And I'm going to do auto apply in this scenario because I want to see it. And it's going to take a while because I'm, again, streaming, and it's giving me an error, of course. It's giving me an error, but it's still running and doing its thing. No boolean result produced. That's interesting. Let's just fix the edges. And this is basically going to do a check, fix mesh kind of a thing. Or we could do this one at a time, by the way. Actually, let's do that one at a time. Let's cancel. And let's do this, for example, for this boolean over here, right? So I do that. Oh, of course, because this is the same polygroup, which I think that was my mistake. So if I do this and do shrink like so, there's a way we could do this, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Let's just do this one over here, right? So let's mask this off. That's number one thing you want to do. Mask this whole thing off. Turn off that line because it's confusing me. and invert that mask. So now Live Boolean, or sorry, Bevel Pro is only going to look at whatever is unmasked. So if I click Bevel Pro, the only things that it's going to try to remesh things and create a Boolean, a bevel, sorry, Boolean bevel, it starts with a B. And it's the part that is unmasked. So that might be less resource intensive in this scenario, because we're talking about a mesh with a high poly mesh. There you go. It was faster loading as well. So this is the only part you see that is displaying that bevel, right? So I'm going to click auto apply, and right away, straight out of the gate, you'll see that it gives you like this flat bevel around that surface. Any day now. Give it a second. I'm looking here at the script viewer. Adding bevel sub, added base, booleans enabled. This is, oh no, this, am I in the wrong one? Bevel Pro, no, it's Bevel Pro. Boolean enabled, obviously, because it's doing a boolean basically. It's just running another boolean on top of the boolean, right? And there we go. And already you can see you get this beveled shape, which might be what you want. Maybe this is a cool result and you actually like this, right? Like you get this bevel and then you can change the amount. Let's go to advanced and let's actually preview the edges first. And you can see this is the edge, and this is a lot of geometry potentially for that. So we can actually change that mesh edge resolution. We can actually not triangulate the bevel junctions. Well, in this case, we actually want that. We want this bevel amount actually to be maybe a little small, so 0.0 half, like half of that. 0.0 half, that's gonna be our new measurement unit. 0.0 half, guys. So let's wait on it a little bit, and then I'm gonna do a chamfer and then apply that. So I want it to be round, right? Round. Let's see. I would say this edge resolution is better for chamfer. The more resolution, the rounder you're gonna get that shape. And the resolution is around that mesh, because this side going this way, that's dependent on the points you had before, right? So it's just connecting. Basically, you had an edge before. That point, each point of those gets broken up into two, and then it's just linking those points, right? It's just bridging those two new faces. It's basically Boolean your mesh, generating a mesh based on that, and then Boolean and welding those meshes, those points together. Let's wait on it a little bit. There we go. Wait, doing some more calculations. It's added the base. Now it's adding the bevel sub. I can see it on the script viewer. It opens up the Bevel Pro window and then a script viewer where you can see what it's doing. Giving you offset, smooth, how many steps on that smooth. In this case, I don't have any smoothness. Well, I did, but I didn't change that, so it's not changing that smoothness. And you can see already what the actual size of that bevel is going to be. And let's wait on it just a little bit longer. Whoops, my bad. And there we go. And now we can see that it's basically a smaller bevel, right? And we want to do this with a chamfer. So now with the chamfer, it's going to get around, like a round shape. Let's hope it actually works, because there's some weird topology over here because of my sculpt, right? So let's see. Because it's just going around, it's probably going to, anyway. And even if it doesn't, we can actually just go there with a sculpting brush with radial symmetry and just smooth it out a little bit. Maybe with Sculptures Pro at a very small draw size, because you're going to bake that anyway. It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. If you want it to be perfect, you can. It's just that it takes a lot longer. And we're almost out of time, guys. That's another thing. Of course, I couldn't finish a wheel in one stream. Again, this is good. I'm not complaining. whatever questions you have, throw it at me. That's what I'm here for. So not complaining. Any day now. There we go. It's finishing up that. Got 1 Boolean result. There we go. See, this is what you're getting, right? And if I turn off that preview edges, this is what you're getting. I'm not perfect over there, but that's also based on the topology that you're getting from each side, right? So you're getting that round, like crisp shape that is not absolutely sharp, which is unnatural. If I click OK, it should apply that Boolean. Is it gonna crash? Oh, guys, I'm streaming. It's the issue. I'm streaming, and this is very much GPU intensive. Yes, so it depends, right? It depends on how small or big you want the bevel to be. Obviously, this would be noticeable if you're really a close up, but if you're not, does it really matter? Like, that's what you have to understand. Like, even this sculpt is super low res, but that's because it was sculpted and I didn't have enough resolution, right? But if you compare the sharpness of this bevel with the rest of the sculpt, this is already way sharper than what you're getting. There we go. It was okay. It was loading the autosave thing. So there we go. So now if we zoom in, we get another poly group for that bevel. And this is important. If you're doing this using Bevel Pro, oh, I'm triangulating the mesh. I didn't want to triangulate. But if you're using Bevel Pro in a low poly mesh, which you can do, you can enter low poly mode with the chamfer enabled. You can use this to bevel any shape, like your Z modeler shapes, like whatever, right? And this is pretty cool for then if you want to bake and catch that highlight over there on your bake, right? Right, cool. So next steps would be, again, to do the rim. So if we want to do this, right? And that rim, I can actually either model this. I can actually go over here with my presets, insert a single loop, something like that. Right? Maybe I want something like this, or maybe I want to inset that entire edge loop complete, and do something like that. Obviously, this is not giving me what I want, so I'm gonna actually do another. This is too small, so I'm gonna do maybe something like this, and then PG loop. And again, we're using presets. It's the fastest way to go, right? Now I'm doing that, and now I have a little bit of a lip over there, right? Which might be what I want. If it's not what I want, then I can change that as well. I can actually go over here. No, actually, let me just change that like that first. Insert over there, and insert over there. PG loop, Q mesh, oops, like that. And now we have a little bit of a lip going on. All right. So what I would ideally want. And then if you want the rim to be thicker, again, because this is very flexible kind of a workflow, where I'm gonna actually Q mesh this entire thing, but if I hold shift, I'm just moving that, right? So I'm gonna do that with dynamic subdivision on, so I can see what it's actually doing. Maybe I don't like this too much. I'm gonna move it back ever so slightly, maybe something like that. I like actually how it looked before, so something like this. Right? And now we could either use radial symmetry to start modeling a shape or something, or we could actually sculpt something, use a ray mesh to go around. Like, let's start with the first option, and then we can carry on next stream and do the array mesh, and then do retopology and bake this and texture this and all of that, right? Going from ZBrush into Substance. So let's go and insert a loop single. I hope I don't go too much overboard. It's already 8 p.m. my time, so let's do a little bit of a, oops. Let me just go ahead and do symmetry on the Z-axis first. And I want to do something like that, right? And now I want to do radial symmetry. So radial symmetry actually on the z-axis as well. So now I want to do maybe, actually, how many loops do I have here? I kind of forgot. Jesus, I absolutely forgot, which is not a good, that's not a good idea to forget your, let's do cylinder 3D. But this cylinder, this is not the same cylinder. Yup, I screwed up, guys. Forgot my loops. Let's see, so we have 1, 2, 15, 16, 17. And 9. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Let's see how this works. This is the amount of, yep, this works perfectly. So now all I need to do is actually divide that by half, which is which is not an even number, right? So it's gonna be, nope, not 18, that's 15 actually. Let's go and try 15. Yeah, it's not even. See, it's not even. This is a problem. So I can just remake this, actually. Let me do that again. So let me actually duplicate this, so in case and we can actually manage to do this. So again, cylinder 3D. Oh, now it's working. Okay, how many of those I have? Okay, 29. Let's change this to 30. And let's scale this back down to something like this. Let's do this like that. Again, just remaking this entire thing because I screwed up. You have to plan ahead when it comes to hard surface. Never, never, never forget that. So now that I have something like this, again, I'm gonna crease PG, not crease PG, sorry. I'm gonna crease by angle. And now I'm gonna use ZModeler actually to the loop, and then the loop over there. This should be even now. So if I do this, we have 30, so that means now I need to have 15. There we go. So I can have every other, right? 7.5, and it's not deal. It's not divisible. That's the problem. Doesn't matter. Let's actually do something cool over here before we leave today. And I'm gonna insert an edge loop over there, like I did before, right? And now polygroup, polyloop. And when I'm gonna do cube mesh polygroup island, bada bing, whoops, bada bing, bada boom. I kind of forgot about this side, so snap, actually, let me snap this exactly in the middle. It's a good idea. Control to snap, right? ZModeler. Then not polygroup, not cube mesh, but polygroup, polyloop. And this, I only needed to snap over there. And it still remembers my cube mesh, so I'm gonna go cube mesh polygroup island. And do that, and then tap. And now we have the rim over here on this side. And now I can crease it again based on angle. And now what I want to do, because that's why I have this polygroup, is hold control for this. Turn off live boolean so I can see what the heck am I doing. So something like this. Select this whole inverted cylinder. Go to display properties, flip it. And let's see if I have a remesh turned off. There we go. Turned off. Go to these edges over here, and I want to close convex hole. Whoops. There we go. And now tap that. This needs to be the same polygroup. I don't like that alternator polygroup over there. And now let's go back over here. turning on live boolean. Whoops, turning on live boolean means I get this, right? Now I also want an inset over here, inset polygroup island, and I'm actually gonna just paint by holding Alt. Same thing goes on the, actually this is a different polygroup. I just couldn't see it because it's very close. So inset, and now just tap that one. And D key, and there we go. We have our rim back, but now it's the correct amount of loops, meaning I can use radial symmetry. So I'm gonna do that thing where I just go insert, actually do my presets, insert loop single, and I'm gonna make sure, because this is the same amount of loops as I have over here, so I'm gonna make sure that I have a loop over there, control, to snap it to maybe like a fourth of that. And now the same thing goes over here. Actually, this should be a little thicker, so something like that, right? And now what I can do is using my symmetry, I want to paint one over here and one over there. And I want to go ahead and bridge two polys. I'm gonna bridge that one to that one. See that? Great. Will that translate as an issue in a normal map? If you're talking about the Boolean, if you run Bevel Pro, it won't. As long as you don't have any 90-degree angles, you're good to go. Like 90 degrees based off of the face, like the retopoed face, the low poly, and then you have high poly details, right? You can't have high poly details that stand at a 90-degree angle with your low poly cage. Otherwise, that part is not seen by the normals if your normals are not averaged or smooth or soft, depending on which DCC you're using, right? If they're hard normals, it's going to be a straight line, straight curve, straight vector, actually. That's the more correct term. If it's a smooth normal, and let's say the next face on the retopo face is sort of standing like this, then your vertex normal are actually going to capture the detail at an angle, and that's fine. But you're still going to have issues with the 90-degree angle. So the idea is that you run Bevel Pro to avoid those sorts of issues, so it comes through in the normal mode, right? Cool. So now that I have this, I can go ahead and insert a single edge loop, and you can see it's inserting on everything. Or I can do something even crazier. I can actually model this. Let me think a little bit. Let me think. Okay. So one thing I can do is actually go ahead and delete. I can just delete those polygons. And now I could go over here, and I can go to edge actions and close, not close, sorry, bridge two holes, right, in the edge actions. And what this allows me to do is I can do this, tap that, and then tap this, and now I can control the curvature. Look at that, beautiful. Let's say I want something like this, okay? Nor, before I even do that, I can go ahead and do insert. Before I even painted that, let's do an insert sort of like over there. Or actually, let's do an insert over there. And delete that one. I want it to be all the way over there in the back. So now with the symmetry, paint that. And now I want to delete those polygons again because it's a white polygroup. So when you hold Alt and you tap, it's just painting a temporary polygroup, right? Whatever action you do, even if it says single poly instead of polygroup, it's going to affect everything that has been painted a white polygroup, right? So you don't care about the target at that point. So again, I'm going to do bridge two holes, let's do round corners. Let's try round corners. So I'm going to do something like this. This is probably a little too much, but if I run this like a dynamic subdivision, and I'm gonna actually crease over here as well. So I'm gonna crease, edge loop partial, bada bing, bada boom. And bada bing, bada boom over here também. And, sorry, a Portuguese word just popped out of nowhere. So let's actually go and crease PG. I'm gonna go crease PG. We'll go put the PG. And now we have this weird looking wheel, because why not? Right? Because why the heck not? Right? Obviously, maybe I would probably do this like, I don't know, instead of like by half, like a quarter or something. So maybe I can, obviously this, then I would need to divide this by half and it would be a pain. But this is the idea if you want to go the low poly route, you know? Now, if you want to keep that lip going, you might want to go back even further and just go insert edge loop and insert it over there. Something like this, right? And then insert one over here, potentially over here, right? And now I can paint this instead of that at the edge, paint that, and then just delete, and then I can go again, power of the presets, right? I could have just used the preset, but because I'm still not sure if I like the round corners, if I like the one line, so one line would give you, would give you something like that. Oops, let me just bridge. One line would give you just a straight line. So I'm still not sure about that, so that's why I'm doing. Let's do circle. Do a circle. Oh, come on. So first one, second. Oh. Let's do something like this, and then smooth it out. And now I want to crease, edge loop complete. I could also crease PG in this scenario. I think would be best. So if I go and crease PG, let's go again over here, crease PG. There we go. And maybe I don't want this crease, so I'm gonna alt tap that. I want this to be slightly round. And then this is giving me an issue because there's not enough resolution in your cylinder. And obviously you want that resolution. You want the resolution. That's what you want. You want that resolution when you're doing songs. So I'm gonna actually just uncrease that shape. It's still weird. I don't know. Let's play around later and find out why this is happening. So this is my Rodolfo's goofy wheel, and the rim actually looks pretty goofy. And we are over time by 15 minutes, and I hope whoever streams next is not mad at me. But I decided to do this little demo for you guys. So next time we're going to do retopo workflows to send it to Substance directly from ZBrush. Maybe bring back, shoot it back to Cinema just to see how we can lay out the UVs in a better way, like pack it properly and stuff like that, and then shoot it back into Substance. That is the idea for this little project, where I'm going to show you that entire pipeline. That's why I chose a fairly simple concept, a very simple object, which is a wheel, a tire. This is simple because we're talking ZBrush, right? If this was to be modeled, box modeled, especially with all these little details, in any other DCC application that is traditional, you have to have clean topology from the get-go, this would be a freaking nightmare. And I know, because I used to be like that. I used to be a psychopath like that. I'm sorry. But now that I use ZBrush, it's all sculptural. It's all non-destructive. It doesn't matter how much geometry. It doesn't matter if the topology is correct. All you care about is the end result. It's the sculpting. This is the key. This is why I've become obsessed with this little thing. This juice. This tea. Right? All right, everyone. This has been my stream. Coming back to streaming after a long time. Oh my god, My shoulder just cracked. I don't know if you guys heard that through the mic, but whatever. That means it's time for me to go. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm Rodolfo Silva from the ZBrush team here at Maxon. And bye-bye. Bye.